The year is 1990. The 80s wave of glam rock and cheesy dance pop is still in full effect. But beneath the surface, the underground is beginning to rage. Thrash metal is beginning to crack into the mainstream. Seattle is full of up-and-coming bands redefining what rock music is capable of. And deep in the club scene, an aggressive and mechanical style of music is beginning to find prominence. But beyond the underground, a song is on repeated rotation, a radio hit that took the world by storm, fusing this aggressive industrial sound from the underground with synth pop in a way that's never been heard before. Nine Inch Nails, even in their early days, was a big deal. No one could have seen the success of Pretty Hate Machine coming, nor the impact that it would make. It seemed like Trent Reznor had just become an overnight icon, a new and interesting voice from the underground, leading the charge of revolutionary artists trying to redefine what a synthesizer and guitar could do in the same song. But just as quickly as Nine Inch Nails had become a staple, it wouldn't be long before crickets in the dead of night. The band had vanished, leaving a strange void that would soon be filled by a wave of grunge bands and alternative rock. But come the year 1992, that sleeping giant would awake once again. Nine Inch Nails would return, but in an almost unrecognizable form, with an EP that left a mark and shock still felt more than 30 years later. As we talked about in the previous video, the road to Nine Inch Nails as a band and Pretty Hate Machine itself was a wild ride and journey of its own. The record was starkly uncommercial in its design, fusing elements of underground 80s music like industrial and EBM with early hip-hop and some elements of glam rock here and there. The result was songs like Head Like a Hole, Something I Could Never Have, and Sin becoming underground anthems that would propel Nine Inch Nails into the mainstream spotlight. But beyond just them, it also helped to usher in a new wave of fans and attention to the early industrial scene. Like I usually do, I'm going to actually compare things here to Nirvana's success, a band that came out of nowhere and with a single record changed the course of rock music overnight. And in many ways, Pretty Hate Machine would do the same thing for alternative music and quote-unquote college rock when it came out. It didn't disrupt the mainstream like Nirvana had done, but it essentially did the same thing, or at least had the same effect for the underground, with the record becoming the bridge for many new fans of new wave and softer alt-rock to find their way into the harsher end of the spectrum with industrial, noise, and dark wave music, bringing Nine Inch Nails to the forefront of the underground music scene that was starting to bubble up at the time. And during this era, the band would relentlessly tour in promotion of it, and to everyone's surprise, the record would become huge. But this newfound spotlight on Trent would come as both a blessing and a curse, all thanks to some deep-rooted tension that had begun to boil under the surface.
The main problem with them is just that I want to be left alone to do what I want to do. And I don't need somebody coming in the studio telling me he doesn't like the way this mix sounds, when why would I care what you think? You know, I don't respect you, and I don't like your artistic opinion, and you're a lawyer. You know, I'm an artist, I'm a musician, leave me alone.
Probably the most famous incident of the band's early years was the TVT Records feud. What started as a miracle success for a very non-commercial record released by a non-commercial label would soon turn to a curse that trapped the Nine Inch Nails name in a pit of corporate politics and executive bindings. TVT Records was not some normal record label. that's something we have to really get in our heads to begin with. Rather, they specialized in TV and movie soundtracks as well as theme songs, their original name being TV Tunes. In the years leading up to Pretty Hate Machine, the label had started shifting its focus onto more traditional commercial music, signing some small acts like Nine Inch Nails to get the ball rolling in their new direction. And we all know how that gamble turned out. It was a pretty good one, to say the least. But the part of the story that often gets overlooked regarding Pretty Hate Machine is that the label owner, Steve Gottlieb, famously hated it, going as far as calling the record an abortion and even negatively reacting to the news that it had sold over 1 million copies, making demands for the band's follow-up to sell 4 million this time, a near impossible goal. Now, this is not as out of pocket as people may think. Record executives are famous for being cutthroat pieces of shit and treating their artists like tricks to sell on street corners. But with TVT, and specifically Steve Gottlieb, the relationship with Nine Inch Nails had been turbulent from the very start. Steve had signed Nine Inch Nails believing that they would become TVT's answer to Depeche Mode, a darker synthpop act with mainstream appeal. But as Trent's ambitions became increasingly abrasive and experimental, that relationship would rapidly deteriorate. And needless to say, this is where a lot of future issues would sprout from, and the labored, intense communication between both parties would only further burn the bridge. According to Trent, TVT hadn't provided enough promotional support, withheld royalties, and most importantly, continually interfered with his creative decisions. Producers were suggested, commercial expectations were imposed, and the label wanted Pretty Hate Machine Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. But that's not what Trent wanted to make. He instead had something entirely different on his mind. But it was through this turmoil that caused Trent to begin using all the money and connections that he had acquired through the success of Pretty Hate Machine to write and record new music under different pseudonyms, breaking his contract and attempting to make the follow-up that he wanted.
Nothing makes an artist more angry than people in offices trying to tell them how to make their music. It's like, no, your job is just sell what I give you. If you knew how to do this, you would have been doing this, and obviously you're not because you can't. So just you do your job and I'll do mine.
Beyond the secret recording sessions, the process of making Broken would be drastically different from its predecessor. Pretty Hate Machine was mostly written and recorded during Trent's time working as an overnight assistant in a studio, doing the type of cleaning and maintenance that no one would want to do. This gave those recording sessions an intimate and almost isolated atmosphere. Even the record's sleazy aesthetic felt like an extension of the grimy studio environment that Trent was working in every night. But even on the musical side, the influences at play couldn't be any more different. Pretty Hate, and especially its unreleased demos of Purest Feeling, were written during and after Trent's time playing in synthpop and new wave acts like the Exotic Birds, which is where most of the Flock of Seagulls and early Depeche Mode worship came from. But by the time Broken was coming around, Trent had already spent years immersed in the industrial touring circuit, sharing stages with bands like Ministry and Skinny Puppy, absorbing a much heavier musical landscape. And even beyond these two direct influences and contemporaries, the popular music of the time had really changed, and heavier music had taken much more prominence, with stuff like grunge, DC hardcore, thrash metal, and other heavier forms of music in general. Now, cross these musical influences with the burning rage of the TVT record situation, and you have the perfect turmoil for an angry rebranding to happen. And to happen, it did. Broken's first and most apparent break with the old material was its guitar-heavy songwriting, with distorted and at times even static-sounding guitars taking center stage over the analog synths of old. But along with this, the Ministry influence had also crept in, as the synths themselves would make their appearance but more distorted, and they would be done with a much more EBM flair and style to them than the analog new wave kind of sound that we heard on Pretty Hate. But there's also something else that had heavily begun to affect Trent's influences, and that was his media diet. Around this time, Trent had developed an interest in transgressive horror, exploitation films, and the infamous video nasty era of home video. That fascination would become increasingly visible in Broken's imagery, and for reasons we'll get into later, there was much more speculation that Trent had begun watching and developing fascinations with snuff movies. Now, this is a mythologized aspect that holds a little bit of truth and some farce in its claims. But essentially, it would be confirmed to a limited degree in interviews, as well as the prevalence of BDSM iconography and aesthetics. Broken would really begin to shape into something nearly unrecognizable to the band's image and sound that had come to be known during their initial years. And when Wish finally arrived, audiences expecting another Head Like a Hole were instead met with something raw, hostile, and unmistakably different.
I remember when we got the EP in, and it was 6:30 in the evening. It was like a Tuesday afternoon, and I go on the air and I say, "Hey, after 3 years or whatever it was, we got a brand new Nine Inch Nails song for you." Oh God. I think I've just lost my job.
Wish was a mission statement, a song that did more than launch a new era of Nails to the masses, but rather it was a message, telling the world that the pop-laden material of old by a young, insecure, and curious man was gone. Pretty Hate Machine was written from the point of view of someone who felt that the world may suck, but I like myself as a person, and I can fight my way out of this bullshit. Broken introduced self-loathing, which is not a popular topic with anybody, especially in a song. What we were now being treated to was the unbridled rage of an artist burnt by the system. Even the music video revels in the changes it brought to the band's imagery. The videos for Pretty Hate Machine carried a pseudo-cyberpunk aesthetic mixed with 80s cheese, where here in Wish, we're instantly met with something a lot more grungy, primal, and rusted. And even the way the band's dressed plays into this as well, with them donning outfits and a stage setup that's reminiscent of what would later be very normalized with the Downward Spiral. This is another important aspect of Broken though. For those only familiar with Nine Inch Nails' full-length records, the jump from Pretty Hate to Downward Spiral is extremely drastic in this regard. But Broken itself serves as much of that connective tissue. While the EP itself is jarring, it does fill in the gaps and build a musical and visual bridge between these two projects. Something also shown in the more theatrical experience of the EP's track list, with the inclusion of multiple instrumental interludes that act as thematic glue between songs. Pinion and Help Me I'm in Hell are used to create tension and build anticipation, a technique used on the Downward Spiral, and even more so to an almost indulgent effect on the Fragile. Broken isn't simply heavier than Pretty Hate Machine. It's also remarkably focused. Every song circles the same emotional territory. Topics of control, humiliation, rage, self-loathing, and the loss of autonomy. And rather than telling separate stories, the EP feels like one continuous emotional collapse. Of all the songs on the EP, I do think Happiness and Slavery is the most representative. Musically, it shows off the heavy and aggressive sound that permeates all over Broken, but it's also a track that shows off the upfront and ugly lyrics. Don't open your eyes, you won't like what you see. The devils of truth steal the souls of the free. Don't open your eyes, take it from me. I have found you can find happiness in slavery. Happiness in slavery. The lyrics play on the title's theme, reflecting the experience of losing autonomy and becoming human junk, and in that experience, finding happiness in slavery. While what's written is visceral and intense, the meaning behind them is actually incredibly simple. It can be read as the feeling of being an artist, creative, or a visionary in general, and having a broken machine, or in this case, the music industry, come down on you and trap you in a cage. An experience that outsiders might just see as a hobby becoming a job with bosses and people to answer to, but for an artist, this is the greatest torture that you could ever really experience. Finally having a dream come true, only to have your voice, your mind, and your soul taken from you, dictated by a class of people who do not care and only see you as a slave to toil for their profit. And this theme is all over the record. Covered in hope and Vaseline, still cannot fix this broken machine. Watching the hole, it used to be mine, just watching it burn in my steady systematic decline. Of the trust I will betray, give it to me, I throw it away. For everything I've done, I hate myself for what I've become. Gave Up gives a different side to the story. The part where regret and hopelessness takes full hold over you. Within the context of Broken, this song represents the experience of giving up, accepting that our dreams have been crushed, and despite our best efforts, we cannot change the outcome. Now, despite all this negativity and rage, something else that should be apparent is that the hopelessness described in the lyrics lead to a blessing hidden beneath the curse of Trent's tribulation. What came out of all this was a true musical evolution, a material that even today is unmatched in its heavy and intense nature. I mean, just listen to Last. Ministry be damned, this track is one of the best fusions of late 80s thrash metal with industrial. It takes all of the influences, all the anger and dread across the EP, and smashes it into an uncompromising sound and vision that still stands as one of Nine Inch Nails' most important records to date. And going back to where we started with that TVT feud, there was a happy ending at the end of the road. Jimmy Iovine of Interscope Records would take interest in Nine Inch Nails, and despite Trent's skepticism during the process, Iovine would bring a resolution, getting a 50-50 deal with TVT Records and providing Trent with the freedom and autonomy to fully embrace his creative vision, resulting in the release of Broken and setting the band on the path forward that would etch them into music history.
Do you find yourself answering to a lot of people or defending your actions having gone from TVT to Interscope and because there was this enormous bidding war for the band and a lot of people were paying a lot of attention to who you were going to go with, and do you find yourself defending your actions?
Surprisingly not on that front. I mean, I have more people that are concerned about potential sellout factor, and I find that the more fans you get, then suddenly you're questioned by a lot more people. Mm-hmm. And the original fans that you had now suddenly have to question if they still like you because other people like you. And you find yourself in a weird position of your whole mission is to sell as many records as you can and do a good tour and etc. And you start doing that and people start to like you, and then the people that originally liked you suddenly don't like you anymore because of something you didn't live up to, obscurity thing. So, but as far as the deal, I haven't had many people get on me about that, you know.
Broken would be a surprise success to most. Usually music as abrasive and uncommercial as the EP were doomed to obscurity or to cult status. But against the odds, Broken resonated with fans and critics alike. It would be certified platinum within 3 months of release, and even the song Wish would garner an award, possibly being the only song with the lyrics fist fuck to be given a Grammy. Though the breakthrough success of the EP wouldn't be its only accolade. As soon as it took off, the controversy came crashing around like a tsunami. There were the obvious religious and parental groups that hated it for its explicit and nihilistic contents, but beyond them came something a lot bigger. The most famous of which would be the music video for the song Happiness and Slavery, a video that would near instantly be banned by MTV. The video itself depicts performance artist and S&M icon Bob Flanagan being tortured, pleasured, and ultimately turned into fertilizer for a garden. The music video isn't just a piece of internet infamy or mythical legend either. It's a genuinely uncomfortable and hard to watch endeavor, and rightfully garnered a pretty insane reputation due to its content. Now, Reznor would say that the video wasn't meant to be shock value, and to an extent I do believe him, especially in the context of the album's other visuals and lyrics and the film it was intended to be part of, but I also think shock value was the goal here as well. Needless to say though, Happiness and Slavery fed into the rumors of Trent's interest in snuff. And this is where these rumors and fables really come from. And that's because this whole thing was part of an even bigger project known as the Broken Movie.
Elton says he was so offended when he first saw the videotape that he wrote a letter to the band complaining about its impact on young fans. Our investigative reporter Dale Russell is here with more. Dale?
Brenda, the videotapes celebrate the music of Nine Inch Nails. That's a very popular hard rock band, but the tape is filled with extreme violent images. And when a local radio consultant, Tom Barnes, saw a copy of the tape 2 years ago, he wasn't sure whether it was a promotional ploy or an artistic exercise.
Another aspect to this record that has been mythologized about since its release. The Broken Movie was meant to be a companion piece for the EP. It's essentially just a long-form music video of most of the songs, expanding on the imagery and the underlying story presented through a lot of the record's music videos and promotional material. But it would ultimately end up being shelved as to, I quote here, not overshadow the music. It was directed by Peter Christopherson of Throbbing Gristle and Coil, one of Trent's heroes, so it was definitely something that meant a lot to him. The film itself is a short, artsy-fartsy affair filled with gore, violence, fetish material, and shocking imagery that includes none other than a guy getting his penis cut off. It's a mess of a movie, and honestly, if I had to speculate, this over-the-top exploitation element is what led to it being shelved in the first place, as I could only imagine that it probably became very apparent that this film might break any success that Trent and the band had found after they had already come under fire for the Happiness and Slavery video alone. But in a way, by not releasing it, the movie added a lot of mystery and mythology around the band. The mystique of an unreleased film, rumored to be a snuff movie by Trent Reznor, would become a defining moment in Nine Inch Nails' history, creating a lot of speculation and intrigue around Trent as a figure. And that's without mentioning that the studio that Trent had built and the place where they filmed the official Gave Up music video that actually saw release was all done in the Tate murder house. Now, the reason I can actually talk so confidently about what's in the movie today is because it did eventually get released, at least unofficially, as at some point during 2006 it popped up on the Pirate Bay and Trent himself would give a little wink and nod that he may or may not have been the one who leaked it.
The Broken is the EP that's out now. And now, is there a remix that's called Fixed? Am I incorrect?
No, what happened is I had people that I respect do remixes of all the songs on the record, including Coil and Jim Thirlwell of Fetus. And a variety of people. Of course, I can't think of any now that you've asked me that. But decided to make like one big 12-inch of all remixes with all the songs remixed. And call it Fixed. The problem was that possible confusion in the marketplace, so I'm told by people that know that sort of thing.
Now, regardless of any controversy, in the end, Broken would cement Nine Inch Nails and Trent himself as a force to be reckoned with. The TVT Records feud ending with him gaining a relative independence from their contract, and Interscope Records providing Trent with the ability to form his own imprint label, Nothing Records. A label that would waste no time in promoting and signing acts like Marilyn Manson, who he would even feature in the music video for Gave Up, as well as following up Broken with a sister EP known as Fixed, where it was filled with remixes of songs from Broken. Now, more than 30 years have passed, and the legacy and influence of Broken is still felt really strong today, as well as the controversy. Broken is beloved not only for its bold and unapologetic nature, but because it spawned an entire new era of industrial and alternative music with it, not only as an influence, but a catalyst to Nothing Records, which would be the home and spawn point of another 90s legend who has his own story to be told. If Pretty Hate Machine was the birth of Nine Inch Nails, then Broken is the breaking point of Trent Reznor. And that's why to this day it still stands tall as a defining act and a defining piece in their catalog. Long live Broken. Oh, hey, it's that time again. Yeah, you see that? That's my wall of shame, and if you're curious, that's the list of names of the people who donate once a month to make sure that my fat ass is still here making videos and that I'm getting paid. And hey, I know everyone likes to be included in things, so don't worry, this isn't an exclusive club. You want your name up here? Just sign up to my Patreon. Give me some money and I'll see what I can do for you. All jokes aside though, if you want to support me, the links are in the description, and for everyone who has and already does, I can't say thank you enough. It means the world to me, and I'm so glad to be able to make all this content, be able to talk about all this stupid music and video games and dumb shit that I'm into. It really is a blessing. I absolutely love this. I love the challenge of constantly trying to improve the videos and get better, find new ways of covering these topics, and just making things interesting and fun. So I'm glad you guys are along the ride with me, and needless to say, I've got a shit ton more content coming your way. I apologize for the delay in this video, like I do with almost all of my videos. Broken was just something I was really trying to figure out how I wanted to cover, because I didn't want to only talk about the controversy. I didn't want to only talk about just the music, and it's also just a smaller project to kind of tackle, so trying to find a way of getting it into a really interesting piece that's worth your time was a bit of a challenge, but I'm pretty proud of how it came out. And if you love it or hate it, you can rant at me or praise it in the comments below. Go ahead and let me know what you think, and feel free to harass me for more videos and give me suggestions. I always like going through those, because a lot of times you guys will bring something up that I've either forgotten about or that I've kind of written off, like, I don't know if I can do that, I don't know if anyone would like it, and then, you know, that little bit of validation comes in, and that is nice. With that being said, follow me on Twitter, support me on Patreon, subscribe and comment and all that fun stuff. I got a Discord server if you want to join that. The link's in the description, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.